Welcome to the Death Cafe. When you check in, give me a little chat and let me know where you're from in the world. We often have people from all over the world. Canada's a big show up on the Death Cafe, so I'd love to know where you're from. And in the meantime, get yourself a cuppa, something that you would enjoy to drink, and settle in, and we'll get started in just a minute. Also, let me know if you're first time at the cafe. I'd love to know if you've been here before, or if this is your first time. That would be really great to know that. So, welcome. I have had the honor of leading death cafes for almost 10 years, and everyone is different. None of the cafes are the same. And that's what makes it really special. Even if we talk about subjects that we have before, it's always different because of you. And tonight, this hour is for you, for your inquiries, for your questions, for your concerns, and things that you want to share with each other. We absolutely learn from each other. So settle on in, make yourself really cozy and comfy, and I look forward to having our conversation tonight. So hang on for just a moment, we'll get started. All right. Well, while people are gathering and coming into the cafe, how about we take a moment to just come together and to ground? So wherever you are, if it feels right, go ahead and let your eyelids gently close. Let's take a moment to let go of our day. I don't know what your day was like, what you've been through, where you are, but make that connection to your breath, and let's try and drop in and relax. Find your breath and connect with the feeling of your breath. And just let your breath take you deeper within. Allow your breath to help you let go of any tension, any holding, or any control in your mind or your body. Allowing yourself to be deeper and deeper with each breath, connecting to that still, quiet place within your breath and within your being. A place that's always calm, that place that doesn't react to the disturbances of our senses that we experience every day. And take a moment for yourself right now, whatever you're needing to bring yourself centered. Let go of any holding, any control, honoring all your thoughts, honoring all that's moving through you. All is a special and important place of who you are. And we come together as a community to share our hearts. May you feel safe. May you feel loved. And may you feel free to share your heart with love from my heart to yours. And when you're ready, come on back and settle in. All right, let's get started. If you've come on to the Death Cafe, I'd love to know who you are, where you're from. So if you don't mind going into chat and letting me know where you're from, and most important, what brings you to a cafe. That'll be really helpful, because tonight's about you and our interaction and having conversation. For those of you that have never been to a Death Cafe, I'd like to share a little bit about what a Death Cafe is. The phrase Death Cafe identifies both a movement and the individual gatherings that occur as part of this movement, kind of like tonight is one of an individual gathering. This movement began in Switzerland when a gentleman by the name of Bernard Creites held his first Café Mortel. That's what it was called then in 2004. Later, a British web designer, John Underwood, was inspired to host a Death Cafe gathering at his home in London in 2011. Today, there have been over 12,109 Death Cafes in 75 countries. Death Cafe events are always offered as a nonprofit basis, and the goal is for the event to be accessible, respectful, and a confidential space with no intention of leading to any conclusion, no products, no course of action, alongside with refreshing drinks and nourishing food. So if we were together pre-COVID, I would serve chocolate and tea. Death by chocolate's not a bad place to be. So you can snuggle up with something to drink and a treat as well. But I want to share what the overall objective of the Death Cafe gathering is. It's to increase awareness of death with a view of helping people make the most out of their finite lives. And that accepting this finite of life allows us to live more fully, discarding the external roles and petty concerns that are essentially meaningless. It brings meaning to life when we contemplate death. Thus, allowing the space and the incentive to focus on what is truly important and meaningful. People choose to take part of the Death Cafe gathering for so many reasons, but it's worth noting that the Death Cafe movement has arisen spontaneously, appearing to meet a felt need and demonstrate that at least some people in our culture and elsewhere are willing and able to talk openly about death-related subjects. In the almost 10 years that I've led Café, what I find is people's reports are, that was so helpful. I feel less anxious. I was able to meet my death or loved ones feeling a little less anxious. And I actually feel better after Death Cafe, not depressed. And that's great. So the cafes are not intended to be a grief support group. However, we do feel support when we gather to talk about a subject that everybody's interested. We're all going to have that walk one day. It's not a lecture or an educational session, although we do get educated by hearing each other. It is a discussion, and the discussion is founded on your inquiries and your interest and your concerns. Communication about end-of-life issues is the key to understanding and making rational decisions in our life. We can't magically make death disappear, as you know, from our lives, nor can we completely erase the sadness and other forms of distress associated with death-related issues. However, we can talk about death, share our insights and our attitudes, and learn more from each other, and strive together to cope more effectively with dying, death, and bereavement. So that's just a little bit of what I've noticed over the years and how the Death Cafe serves. And now I want to ask you, because you came here tonight, and what brought you here? What's on your mind? What can you share? And what questions are coming and moving through you? So a whole bunch of people has been sharing things, so I just want to read a few and see where everybody is. Hi, Pat. Pat's checking in from Evergreen, Colorado. It's nice to see you. Pat also joins us for our Into the Mystic Book Club, so it's lovely to have you here. Thanks for coming in. And Christine's here from San Diego. Thanks for being here. And Bev, thank you for the little meditation. I'm from Kalamazoo. Lovely. It's my third time attending your cafe. Enjoy listening and learning. Thank you. It's lovely to have you back, and want to know what's on your mind tonight, if you would. Let's see who else is here. Sandra from Los Angeles. You got her PhD from Pacifica, and my dissertation is on the Mexican Day of the Dead, a Jungian inquiry. Awesome. Pacifica is also my doctorate program school, and I loved it. And my doctorate was in mythology and depth psychology. So welcome. And the Day of the Dead is an absolutely exquisite practice in honoring and ritual. We have much to learn from that. So I'd love to hear your inquiry or anything that you want to share tonight, Sandra, about why you chose the Mexican Day of the Dead as your thesis. Why that of the many rituals of honoring death around the world. Let's see who else is here. Nikos from Sierra Nevada. Welcome. Sarah, lovely to have you here. And Sarah's down in Orange County. Good, welcome. Wonderful. Thank you all for being here and sharing where you're from. So tell me what's on your mind. What is your questions? What are your inquiries? What are your thoughts? Is there a subject you're interested in processing tonight? While you're getting ready to share some thoughts, any questions too you have, I'm just open to processing with you tonight. I had a Death Cafe on Monday. It's a Zoom Death Cafe that I host every month too, the last Monday of the month, that you are so welcome to join in. If you want more information, you can go to our Facebook page or website, and we can get you there. And Zoom is, we get to see each other, so it's a real different experience. But the topic of afterlife came up, and then the perspective evolved from science to religion to what happens after we die, from a science perspective and from a religious perspective. It was really a deep and profound conversation because there were so many different views and perspectives. So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that. What do you believe happens after we die? I've actually have had several clients and students ask me to tell them what happens after death, and I have to be honest, I haven't been there yet, so I don't have the answer. But I have my belief, and what I have witnessed over the last 35 years also feeds into what I believe happens after life. But I'm real interested if you have any inquiry, and what are your thoughts? Welcome the Brake family from Browns Valley. So while you're processing that, Samantha has a question I'd love to share. What is one piece of advice you would give a new death doula? Well, welcome. Welcome, Samantha, and congratulations on becoming a death doula. And for those of you that may not be familiar with what a death doula is someone that supports someone at the end of life, is a companion, sometimes creates a death plan, sometimes creates in-home funerals to support family, and hold their hands as they walk through this time of life. You know, we don't have a lot of practice in Western culture with death. It's not as talked about in our culture. There's not a lot of conversations that happen within families, within any other circles about death. And we have a strong fear about it in our culture, and sometimes even a denial. So it doesn't get talked about. And when we approach our death, oftentimes there's a lot of fear. So we don't have that practice, whether it's talking about it, whether it's witnessing it, whether it's touching it, helps us get comfortable. It's kind of like riding a bike. When you get on that bike that first time, it's pretty scary and wobbly. But when we keep trying and practicing, and we have training wheels too at first, we start to develop a comfort and a space within ourselves to gain that trust and knowledge, and then we gain the skill through the practice and the practice. And yes, sometimes we have to take a fall, don't we? We learn a lot from our falls in life. But I want to answer your question directly, Samantha, about one advice that I have for a new death doula. And I have to tell you, what comes up for me is this. It's kind of twofold, but it goes hand in hand, if that is okay. And one is, I think the most important thing of a death doula is for a death doula to learn how to hold sacred space. And what I mean by sacred space is really getting out of the way and being able to hold space for someone that's not laced with our projections, with our judgments, with our thoughts on how a death should be. And that's sometimes really hard. We have a cultural duality or dualistic thought called a good death, bad death. And I really don't think there's such a thing as a good death, bad death, unless we choose to label it. For me, that's setting someone up often for failure. Well, what is a good death? If someone dies young, is that a bad death? Who's to say? And if we don't meet a good death, that grief, that pain, that complication, that shame that gets attached to it, I think can be avoidable. So from a death doula standpoint, how can we enter a family's house with not having a lot of preconceptions on how this family should act or what they need to do? It sounds like, oh, I can do that. It's harder than you think to enter a room with a clean tabla rasa, a clean slate, entering in a place where you can perceive and you can hear and you can listen to what the family's needs are and the dying person needs. For me, as I teach an end-of-life practitioner training, that's probably one of the most important skills, and it does take practice. And twofold with that, as a death doula, I think it's really, really important for us to do our work. I'm a death doula and an end-of-life practitioner, and I am constantly doing my interpersonal work, whether that's with a counselor, therapist, writing, journaling, reading, going deep to see where my judgments are, going deep to process my grief of holding hundreds and even thousands at the end of life. That's the way we can step into a situation and have a clear perspective and be open enough to receive what someone's needing. I think this is true in life in general, but especially for those of you and us that are in the service industry. We're giving so much heart and soul, and we're receiving a lot of pain and suffering and witnessing so many spectrums in this life. And we get touched. I feel sad. My heart hurts sometimes. And if I don't process that, it kind of goes inside and builds. I think we have a pressure cooker in our gut. And you know what happens with those old pressure cookers? When it gets too hot, they explode. And we do too. And what doesn't get processed ends up in some form of dis-ease in our body, whether it's a physical, a spiritual, or an emotional. So being a death doula is very hard work. We've been asked into a family space when they're the most vulnerable. It's one of the most intimate spaces in life. And it's laced with all the experiences we have in life: beauty, pain, suffering, ugliness, exhaustion, peace, and something beyond words, numinous, numinality, beyond understanding, the great mystery. So I hope that's helpful, Samantha. You're welcome to check in if you think I can be of more support. I wish you so much blessings in the work that you're undertaking. It truly is needed and a beautiful service to support people on their journey. My heart's with you. So let me get to some of the other inquiries. Forgive me. Let's see. You're welcome, Samantha. My only wish and hope regarding the afterlife is that I get to see my passed on pets at the Rainbow Bridge, or even as I am near death, to comfort me. Oh, beautiful. I wish that too. And I don't know what we're going to see or what we can feel, but you bring up something really, really interesting. You bring up, or even as I near death, to comfort me. And this was a topic in our Death Cafe the other night about the liminal space or the time when we're nearing death. Often loved ones will start visualizing pets or other family members, start talking to them. Many want to be with their mom or talk about going home. I had one beautiful client that I'd walk in a room. It was an older gentleman. And when I walked in the room, he was kind of staring up in a corner of the room. And I came by his bedside and I kneeled by him and I said, Joe, what's up there? What are you looking at? And he said, it's my Uncle Bob. And I said, oh, cool. What's he doing? He's fishing. Oh, wonderful. Did you used to fish with your Uncle Bob? Yeah. Oh, how sweet. What is he doing up there? He's waiting for me to take me fishing. I said, oh, that's lovely. Do you want to go fishing with him? He said, yes. I said, great. I hope you get to do that really soon. So I don't know if that was a dream. I don't know if that was a vision. I don't know if that was a visitation. It matters not. But there is this space of liminality towards the end of life where we're no longer of this world and no longer and we are not where we are going yet. So there's kind of my experiences of floating in and out. Some of our loved ones will feel like they've gone and then all of a sudden come back and engage with us. It's part of this process of letting go. We all do it a little different, but we all go through this process of letting go. And for those of us witnessing, there's a lot to learn from it and a lot to support our loved ones. For example, you heard me say, oh, there's Uncle Joe's not up there. I just play and go with imagination, and I get to learn a lot. But what mattered most to me was he was comforted by this experience. He gained comfort, and it brought him great joy that Uncle Joe was near. And maybe Uncle Joe's waiting on the other side when he gets there. I don't know, but I do know it supported his process in letting go. It supported his process in feeling more peaceful as he was getting ready to leave. There's so many stories like that that have occurred with each client that I have the opportunity of supporting. And it brings me comfort and them comfort as they engage. And again, that could be life review, could be a dream, could be a vision, could be a visitation. We just don't know. And I really truly feel it doesn't matter. The most important is what you do with this information. Does it inspire your faith? Does it bring you comfort that there may be people on the other side waiting for us? It matters not what others think. It's what you believe in your heart, your mind, your consciousness, your faith, your religion. And the more we talk about it, the more you process and engage, the more comfortable you will be, and the more peace that will bring you as you approach your end of life. So thanks for asking that. Let's see. Great. Someone's here from Tucson, Arizona. I'm glad you came in. Thank you and welcome. Thank you. There's just sweet feedback. I appreciate that. Thank you, Pat. Pat wrote, I appreciate how your wisdom applies to end of life as well as living in the present. And I have to tell you, it's really about life. I'll be asked to see a family member, maybe by a sister or a child or a parent. And oftentimes the client or the person that's near the end of life will say, I don't want to talk about death. And I usually say, good, I don't want to talk about death either. And then they look at me like, yeah, you're one of those death support people. Yeah, you want to talk about death. And I say, no, honest, truly, I want to talk about how you live until you die. Really, this is all about life. Life is our process. Dying is a process in life, and death is an event, just like birth is an event, and all that leads up into birth. That gestation, that excitement, that getting ready, that we get to experience more of the coming into the world than what happens after we die. They're very similar, a birth and death. But we prepare more for birth than we do death, isn't it? Many cultures believe we are birthing into something else, not dying, birthing into something else. This life ends, birthing into something else. It's something to process. What is that? How does that fit for you? What do you think about when you're thinking birthing into something else? I know you've heard this before about we're all connected to nature, to the universe, to each other. We're all part of each other. So when we die, do we become part of something else? Do we become part of something else? It's an interesting thought. And how are we all connected? But I truly do believe it's all part of living. And death inspires life. People say, what do you mean death inspires life? Well, without death, we wouldn't have an end. We wouldn't have that inspiration and that motivation to finish that project or write that legacy letter or travel, because we want to hurry up and do things before we leave this experience of life. That's one way how death inspires life. The other way is death brings meaning to life. So when you contemplate this existence that you're living in now ending, what comes to mind for you? For me, what comes up right away is, how do I want to live this to the best of my ability? And it also always boils down to love. How can I love? How can I love more fully? Because if anything moves on from my experience, it's love. Love never dies. Love carries on. Think about someone you love that has died. Do you feel them in your heart? Can you see them inside? Can you experience their voice, their touch? And how do they inspire your life? My mom and sister died within a month of each other, and it was very difficult. And what supports me now with them is I feel their love. Sometimes I can hear their voices, especially maybe if I'm having an off day and feeling overwhelmed or working long hours, which often comes to play. I'll hear my mom's wonderful reminder of taking care of myself. And I can feel it and sometimes hear it. And for me, that's how her love continues on. I'm so grateful that it's there. Death absolutely inspires life for me. And we have a whole bunch of fear about it. Do you have a fear of death? What kind of fear do you feel? Let me check in to see if there's any other inquiries. Oh, Donna, thank you for bringing that in. It's one of my favorite films, Donna said our conversation is reminding her of the book Death is But a Dream. Yes, and there's also a Kevin, not Kevin, Robin Williams film, Where Dreams May Come. It's a beautiful film if you haven't seen it, and it's all about the afterlife. And the cinematography is gorgeous, but it really provokes some deep contemplation of what our beliefs are and what possibilities are, and taps into our imagination. Because we don't talk a lot about death, and we have an anti-aging myth in Western culture which says we're not going to die because we're not aging, for one perspective of death. We don't have a lot of imaginal images besides what we see in cinema and film and media and the arts. Mythology and literature gives us some beautiful examples, but we don't touch death as much. That's a whole different perspective on how death enters us. But some of these films give us another imaginal world that ignites our thoughts and imaginations and helps us process our life and our death. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Death is but a Dream is also a wonderful book for those of you that wish. So another inquiry. Yes, I don't know if it's psychological or spiritual to see those who have passed, but it's such an interesting phenomenon. I don't know either. For some, I do know it's both. For some, it's psychological. For some, it's a spiritual experience. For example, people have these visions in their dreams or have lucid dreams. Or during a meditation, someone might make a visitation of a loved one that died. And I asked, does it matter if it's spiritual or psychological? You know, for me as a psychologist, I think it's just important the way we receive the input and what we choose to do with it and how we choose to process it and bring it into our life. Sometimes the visions are sad and hard. Sometimes they're scary. And I have to tell you, those scary dreams or visions have also been one of the greatest inspirations in my life, because I went down that rabbit hole to learn what some of the meanings were of images that were scary for me. And that helped tremendously in my understanding. As we're talking, I'm thinking about the concept of the unknown. So many things we're talking about, we're not going to know the answer. And we fill the darkness of the unknown with colors. By the way, from an alchemy standpoint, black has all the colors of the rainbow. White does not. That's interesting. And when we're thinking about these places that are dark and shadowy and scary, they inspire us to go deep. They inspire us to find meaning and understanding. Sometimes we repel from it, for sure. And sometimes when we're ready and we have that opportunity, they're the great teacher. Suffering teaches us in life. Suffering is often knowledge wrapped in disguise. It's one way of putting it. I also have another description. It's a jewel wrapped in all kinds of dark matter, if you will. But it causes us to pause. It causes us to pay attention. Like when you have a nightmare, you dart out of bed sometimes, you hear you're awake because something was drawing our attention, and it gives us an opportunity to find meaning. Think about some times in your life that were extremely difficult, whether it was the death of a loved one, loss of a job, a love. Fast forward now to hindsight. How do those experiences change your life? How did they contribute to your depth and to where you are now in life? I think about that often. I had a pretty hard childhood, a lot of violence in my life as a child. And it was so hard and difficult. It actually inspired the work that I'm doing because I wasn't allowed to be around death as I was a child. And it grew into a big, scary monster until I was in my 20s and had the courage to start volunteering at a hospice. But there was a lot of violence, and it took me years to really process that at different layers. But I also know how it brought me compassion, how it helped me in my life have compassion for all, and a wish to never instill any violence or harm to another person. In yogic words, that's called ahimsa. I took that vow at 7 years old, hiding in the dirty clothes hamper as I was hearing my brother getting beaten, knowing I was next. I didn't know what ahimsa meant. I just knew it wasn't okay to harm. So as difficult as those years were, now in hindsight, of course, I had no awareness as a child, and it took me 2-3 decades to come to the awareness of how that cultivated my life and how grateful I was for that. I don't know if I would have learned that under other conditions, and I'm very grateful. Oh, I know it's a little bit of a personal story, but I think this is true for all of us in different ways when we look. And suffering, I don't know if we quite understand what suffering is like for another person. And again, how it can be an instigator in life as well. So, thank you for listening. I hope that was helpful in any way for you. Let me take a peek to see what else is on your mind. I so love your sharing. Thank you. This is truly what makes the Death Cafe live inspirational, is we get to kind of hear each other. I'm doing my best to keep you in the flow, and you, of course, can read the stream too to read people's comments. I have a comment. I have fear of missing out on something fun, missing my daughter's milestones. Thanks for sharing that. And yeah, it's a big fear for all of us. Dying. I have several clients right now, in fact, that are young, in their 40s and 50s, that are in end-stage cancer treatment. And the hardest part for them is missing out on their young children, anywhere from 5 to 16, 17. And the hardest part is missing out on their children's life, their graduations from different school levels, their accomplishments, their first job, getting married, having a baby, being a grandparent. There's no way around that. That's hard. There's no way around that's sad. There's no way around that's a disappointment. There's no way around the grief of that. And it's an important grief to have and to honor and to learn from. And in that grief and acknowledging that, there's also an opportunity. I say this often to a client. I know she's sick of it, but bless her heart, she still listens. That challenges are sometimes an opportunity. I think always an opportunity, but sometimes wrapped in darkness and hard to see. We have to spend the time and the tears to see that opportunity. The opportunity is we have an opportunity with our children before we die. And this is true for all of us, whether we know we're dying or not, to leave our legacy, to leave an imprint on their heart and souls, sharing with them our love, sharing with them our wishes. My poor daughters had to be with me, and I was an end-of-life practitioner all her life and before. And I always take that opportunity, whether in written form or in my heart, to let her know, besides how much I love her, but what's important to me in life and who I am. I want her to know who I am. And so that when I die, maybe I have a little imprint on her heart pocket, and that can serve her in her life. And that's the most important, is to serve her and to love her for me. Also, I have an opportunity, which I've started many years ago. I have a journal book just for her. And when I'm having these moments, I call them mommy moments. And when they're coming, she's like, oh gosh, here comes one of those moments. But a mommy moment is I'm just bursting with love. I can't stand it and hold it. Or I want to share something with her, but maybe I don't want to tell her right now. So I've written it in a journal book. And one day she'll have that, and she can read from she's a little girl to now, my heart, my soul, who I am and what my wishes are for her. And knowing, most important, that I believe in her. And I learn more from her probably than she does from me. She's my greatest teacher. So, yeah, we're going to miss out on a whole bunch of things in their lives. But we can leave that imprint, and we can walk with them without being by their side, because hopefully we'll be encapsulated inside their heart and spirit. I hope that's helpful. And families that I've worked with sharing this really find peace through this journey for themselves as well as their children when they've been able to take the time to share and create what is called legacy work of some type. Some do videos, some write letters, some record messages, and it's all just beautiful. And yes, someone just reiterated a comment I said earlier that I believe in as well. Love never dies, and that will live on. And hopefully that gives us peace in our minds and hearts too, as we leave this life that we've lived. Here's a beautiful comment. Thank you. A beautiful quote. To live in the hearts of those we love is not to die, by Thomas Campbell. To live in the hearts of those we love is not to die. Yes, we absolutely live on in all those people we touch. And I'm sure there are so many people you all have touched that you don't even know. Legacy work's a beautiful contemplation. How do you want to be remembered? How are you creating that legacy right now? It serves as we live and beyond. I just want to share one more thing about all that, if I might. Writing letters to our loved ones that they read after we die is absolutely an incredible gift. It's almost like they can hear you from beyond, hear you from the grave. It's so powerful and so beautiful for those left behind. I was able to read many of the letters my mom wrote to me. She was what I call a collector. She still had my report cards from when I was a little girl. That was so sweet to read. And I could just so feel her viscerally reading these letters that she wrote me and reminding me of her essence. And that, of course, brought incredible tears of gratitude to be connected to her, the honor of her being my mom, and the life she gave me. When I think of my life, I think of the gratitude I have for her, for bringing me into this life. And as was said, she lives on through her love, and I hope I serve her well. Yeah. Here's a comment. This is a cliche, but very true for me, and I appreciate that and honor that. I'm afraid not of death, but not having lived to the fullest of my capacity. Oh, thank you. I don't think that's a cliche at all. I think that's a fear many of us have, and one that I hope inspires you, because you have that opportunity now to lead your life to the fullest, whatever that means. And the fullest may be just honoring the life you have right now, right in this minute. And if you have that gnawing wish list, to start leading your life towards that. What is your fullest capacity? What does that mean? That's going to be so different for all of us. It may just living. This year of COVID for all of us put the brakes on so many things and forced us to contemplate life in new ways. Who are we if we don't have the go-tos in our life? Who are we? What are we? And how do we live to our fullest capacity each day? Such a worthy contemplation. I have to be honest, for me now in my life, it's not about achieving anymore. Even though I'm doing a lot and creating training programs and the HeartWay, it's really about finding myself beyond those things that I do. Who am I? And most important in that, am I serving? That's one of my inspirations, and that's living to the fullest, is loving. Whether it's picking up someone's cuppa behind me, giving nutrition bars to homeless, writing that donation check, the HeartWay, am I serving and loving others? That smile in the grocery store, even though you can't quite see it in the mask, but you can see the eyes light up. Touching, giving. That for me is my fullest capacity. And one other thing, could I share? Is being true to self, finding my authentic self and being that in the world to the best of my ability. And when I'm not, exploring how to unhook myself, exploring how to release my pain and my blocks. Most important, being honest and true to my nature. So I don't think it's a cliche at all. And I wish that for you, to live to your fullest capacity in each breath, in each moment, because we really only have what we have in this moment here. So being here with all of you is my fullest capacity in this moment. And I sure hope it serves you. And I sure hope it serves you to live your life the fullest, whatever that means to you. And I'm biased. Love with all that you have. Love with all of you what you have. So thank you so much for sharing. Wow. It's great inquiry. We do have a few more minutes, about 10 more minutes. Is there anything else that's flowing through you from our conversation tonight? We went pretty deep on some of these topics. And anything new that's streaming through you? And I'd be curious, would you mind sharing what living to your fullest capacity means for you? When I asked you that question, did something move through you? I shared a little bit about what moved through me. Oh, you're welcome, Lena. They've got just a thank you. You're all so very much welcome. What does it mean to you to live the fullest? It's probably the greatest thing that we can do in our life, and it also helps prepare us for death. That place I was talking about earlier, where we may be doing death review or life review, pardon me, or have visions of people that are coming near to us, loved ones, or visitations. During that time, we often do that contemplation of regret or despair. So if we're living our fullest, we will have less regrets. We will have less regrets if we're living to our fullest. What does that mean? What does that mean? And if we're living our authentic self, that contributes to us knowing what that means. It's an interesting contemplation. Here's a comment. Thank you, Tirsa. And hi, Tirsa. Fullest capacity, using the energy I have to connect to myself and others in positive ways. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. I'm caught with your expression positive ways, wondering what that might mean to you. Sometimes we have the be happy, no worries, kind of that colloquialism that we have out there. And I think touching people in positive ways for me, just my view of that, is also really about being loving and being honest. And sometimes in our honest exchange, there's tough moments and interactions that have to be worked through. Oh, it's interesting. Let's see. Where am I now? It's to serve others, whether that's my mom, friends, or others in the communities, but also to have some fun too. Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think it's so important to have fun. I think it's so important to fill us up. Life is this conundrum, isn't it? We have so many emotions and so many experiences. I think the most important thing that comes up for me to share with you is that you're leading your life. The things that you find meets that life, so that when you are facing your death, you had a life well lived. And that will allow you to let go more peacefully. So yes, have some fun, please, and seek joy as well. And serving is joy. Here's another comment. Touching everyone with love and constantly creating are a full life for me. Beautiful. I also feel I am called to be a death doula, but I'm scared. Thank you for sharing that. And I love what brings fullness to your life and touches me as well. And I'm happy, won't have time tonight, but if you want to talk more about being a death doula, just check in with me. You can reach me on Messenger or the HeartWay website, and I'm happy to talk to you about that. And I encourage you to face that fear and to touch in and see what that's about. I have to be honest, many people are fearful of death. And being a death doula means we're facing death. In fact, that's what brought me into the work, as I shared with you. My first client died in my arms, and that changed everything for me because it wasn't what I thought it was. I had been so scared for probably 20 years, and I didn't want to touch it. I didn't want to face it. I didn't want to see it. And I got brave enough to do a hospice volunteer program. And when this person died in my arms, it had nothing like the fear I imagined. It was sad, and it was like a whisper, a movement like a whisper and a breath. There was peace in it, and something I can't put into words. I felt really an energy shift. That's probably the closest thing that would make sense to share. There was an energy shift. And it was so awe-inspiring. It caused me to completely shift my career. I was in business and marketing then, working for large corporations. And I knew this is where I was meant to be and work. So I switched, got my master's in counseling psychology, and became a hospice social worker. So it helped me with my fear. And each client that I touch, each client that I hold in death, helps me embrace life and honor death. So if I can be of support to you, please don't hesitate to connect. Thank you for sharing. Here's another comment. Hearing you makes me realize I haven't reached my capacity of living now. We all just think we have time. Yeah, that's that illusion of immortality. In this life, there is a concept of immortality in many cultures that is beautiful, and a belief that something in us lives on. But this life ends, whether we are reborn, reincarnated, going to a different spirituality, to heaven, to hell. There's a different experience, but this life as we know it ends. And time is an interesting thing. Sometimes it goes fast, sometimes it goes really slow. Sometimes we have no concept of death, of time. The practice of Yoga Nidra that I have the honor of teaching and sharing, we enter a space that is timeless. So, yeah, how much time do we really have? I have no idea. For myself and for you, of course. But I do want to live as if there is no time. When I leave you tonight, for example, I want to know I gave you all I had, and that when I rest my head down to sleep tonight, if I die, I did enough. That for me is a life well lived. And I'll share with you my mantra probably almost every day. I ask myself, is this a good day to die? And if I say yes, then I know I've filled myself. I know that it's been a life worth living. I know that I'm updated with myself. If I have questions or comments within myself still, then I know I have something I want to work with. So if I say, no, it's not a good day to die, I've got to finish writing this program, then I know I've got an attachment that I'm wanting to let go of. So that's something that inspires me to live each day as full as I can and keep up with myself. Yes, I want to be honest, there's absolutely days that I don't get there. Absolutely days that I don't get there. But I'm doing my best, and that's good enough. And that's another way how death inspires life. Because I know there's an end. This is a finite life. How do I want to live it? It's only me that can answer that. It's only me that's going to be facing my death at the end of life. And I want to face it knowing I did the best I can, that I got all that I possibly could out of life. And I've missed something, then I've got to forgive myself. I've got to forgive myself. We really are so hard on ourselves. You know, it's okay. Be who you are. We are absolutely not perfect beings. As my mom would say to me, you're perfectly imperfect. Because she used to say I was perfect, and I couldn't stand it because I knew I couldn't be. But we're perfectly perfect. We're imperfectly perfect. Honor your humanity. It's your teacher. It's your guide. It makes you uniquely beautiful yourself. And I think this all leads into living a life fully. All leads into that. Okay, let's see. One more here. And we just have a couple minutes. So if there's something else you're dying to say, please share it before we close. My positive and your positive are in alignment. Positive is not always happy, but truth and authentic. Thanks. And good job tonight. Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting to explore positive. It's a little bit in the dualistic perspective I was sharing earlier, positive and negative, where we have a whole stream of experience in between positive and negative to be explored. I always think life happens between those within those boundaries of our life and our existence. So we have a lot of gray matter that we work with in life. And for me, that's what brings the juice and the sweetness and the clarity in life. So we're in our last few seconds. I'm going to wind us down. I want to thank you so much for being here tonight and sharing your thoughts and your inquiry. And I sure hope tonight has served you, has deepened you, given you an opportunity to explore your life, your journey, your thoughts, your fears. And I wish you all just all the bounds and juices and jewels and experiences that this life brings. Please let us know how we can support you and serve. I'm the founder of the HeartWay, which is a nonprofit organization, and our goal is to provide services in advocacy, education, client care, ministry, ways to allow you to be all that you can in life and death. From my heart to yours, and I wish you a sweet evening. And would you do me a favor? Wrap your arms around yourself and take a love from me. We'll see you next month, I hope. Take good care of you. Be safe, be loved, be you. Good night.